Hey everybody, Sarah here. So I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit of motivation. I know that on my channel, I most of the time will talk about marketing tactics, but this does impact, like your mindset does impact everything that you do mentally, um, like all your activities as a business person. And so this was really important, really powerful, and I need to tell you, I feel like I need to give you this message. So you may know that I recently had my fourth child. It was something I was a little bit on the down low about because I feel like in my past pregnancies, whenever I've told people that I'm pregnant, they start to like not want to do work with me or do business with me or kind of like try to lighten the load on me a little bit. And it's not that I don't appreciate that, but it's like, I mean, I have a business here and, it just is needless distraction for people to always be like asking me about the pregnancy or feeling like, oh, I can't call her on this or like, oh, like, whatever. So, what was really important about this pregnancy was that I learned, I feel like with every pregnancy and every child, I've learned so much just from the experience of being pregnant and delivering the baby. With my third pregnancy, and so you may also know that all my children are like a year and a half apart. Um, my third baby, I had an unmedicated delivery, and it was a mistake. No, not that it was a mistake, I mean, but it was an accident because what happened was maybe I waited too long, or maybe the labor, just for whatever reason, progressed really quickly. But by the time I got to the hospital, I was almost ready to deliver, and I delivered the baby, like I would say within 10 to 15 minutes of being at the hospital. So I didn't have time for the epidural. And I remember that I had wanted one because I always thought it's impossible to have a baby with no medicine. Like, how am I going to go through all that pain and manage it? Um, but I guess that maybe that was, and I believe in God, but maybe that was God or just maybe some kind of a lesson I was meant to learn in life that something was saying to me, no, Sarah, like, it was like bringing me to the edge of my strength as a human being. And I think that it was whatever it was, the universe was saying to me, no, like, this is really how strong you are. Like, you can actually do this. You can actually handle this pain. And it was pretty bad, though, I have to say. But then what I liked about it was that afterwards, I didn't have to go through that awful time after you have the drugs and everything. And I didn't have to have the IV in my back, and I didn't have to be hooked up to a million machines. And I also didn't have to wait for my legs to come back and get feeling, which is a big thing for me because I don't like that. I don't like thinking, well, what if the anesthesiologist just has a bad day and like messes up my epidural and does something permanent? Or, I kind of always never liked that. Or also, like, I don't like the feeling of not being in control. I felt very helpless because it was like, well, what if someone tries to jump me? What if someone like tries to take the baby and take off? Like I can't even do anything. I'm sitting here, So I felt like though with that pregnancy, with that delivery, that was the lesson was, it brought me to a place where I never thought I could go. And then when you get to that level, when you get to that place, then you can look and you can look back and you don't want to go back. You just want to go forward from that. And so I said to myself, I always felt like after that, you know what? If I ever have another child, then I want to do this the same way. I want to not have any drugs in my birth. But I knew that in order to do that, I was going to have to learn a few things. And so I just will say about mental preparation is that now that I think back to my tenure as an entrepreneur, and I think entrepreneurship is like very much a mental test. I think your motivation and your performance, like a lot of people emphasize the technicalities of entrepreneurship, like you got to get the funding, you got to have a good business model, you got to get good this or that. There have been times in my business where there have been things that have been like pretty much like going to knock me over on the ground, like things that if I wasn't strong, my business never would have made it. And so what I'm saying is, yeah, in business, you can definitely get rocked. You're never going to feel physical pain in business. The only pain you're ever going to feel is like, oh, I feel tired from staying up all night, like doing stuff or whatever, right? You're never going to feel physical pain, but yet despite not having to go through physical pain, there have been times when I've kind of shied away from things in my business. And I look at, like different tasks or challenges that I had that I maybe wasn't as prepared for. And when I think about what I went through to prepare myself for this fourth labor and delivery, the preparation was it was incredible. And I think about the only other times in my life when I've been that mentally prepared, and I want to tell you about them. It was when I was in high school. I used to run track, and I was a state divisional champion. I had a bunch of school records. When I would go out on my training runs, I would actually, it was at the point I would put myself through pain so that when I was in the pain on the day, I was prepared for it. But yet, why did I forget that I used to do that? Like, why, how did I like just weaken so much, after, like, as an adult, I feel like in some ways I was like so much stronger when I was a teenager. I guess that's maybe because in adulthood, our practicalities get the best of us. Well, anyways, what I used to do is like, I used to go out, I'm running in the wintertime and I'm running up hills and I'm feeling my chest get tight and I'm feeling my chest go up and down and my heart's pounding. Like I'm feeling my heart pound, like I'm gonna die. But I'm saying to myself, I'm keeping going. And I'm saying to myself, the top of the hill's almost there. And I'm saying to myself, no, don't quit. You can't quit. You can do this. And I'm feeling the pains in my arms, like shooting pains. And my throat's getting sore. There were times when I would run so hard in track practice. I think they used to call that track burn, that I would have from the, sometimes like the smell of the rubber would be in the air. The smell of the rubber would be in the air and it would burn my throat. And the days after that, I would have like a sore throat. But it was like, that was how hard I was pushing myself physically. It's like, how did I then become an entrepreneur and be like, oh, geez, I don't want to like get this person mad at me, or like, oh, geez, I don't want to spend for me, like mentally, what's hard is spending money. I guess I was just raised in an extremely thrifty. Sorry, I just had to look at the baby. I just told you I had a baby. Extremely thrifty, like extremely financially practical household. So for me, being frugal is natural. But then there have been times in my business where I feel like I've shied away from investing because I've been like, oh, that's so much money. Like, why am I so mentally weak? Well, like, what, am I going to die from this? Like, am I going to feel physical pain from spending out this money? No. Why am I like this? And I have to ask myself this. Well, anyways, another time I was really mentally prepared was studying for the CFA level 2. CFA level 2, I prepared so hard for that exam that there were times when the lights went out and I would study by candlelight. If there was like a power outage, I remember there was a power outage once. Or like another time, I remember I was studying at my work. I used to have a job, not be an entrepreneur, but I had a job, and I would study in the conference room after. At Friday night, I was studying for the CFA. I was like Friday night in my 20s, and I was studying for the CFA exam in the conference room, right? And the heat went off, and I was so into it though that I put a jacket on, and my hands got numb. But I was studying. I used to get a crick in my neck. Like I used to get a pain in my neck right here from bending over the book, but I was so tough about it, It was to the point of physical pain. And so I just want to ask myself, I want to ask all of you, are you pushing yourself that hard? Like, yes, you do have to push yourself that hard to prepare mentally so that when the real pain comes, you'll know it. Well, anyway, so with my 4th pregnancy, I wanted to have a natural birth and delivery, but I was like so badgered and bullied by like all of the doctors. So the first thing was that because I'm 41, I had a baby, by the way, when I was 39 and 10 months old, right? But the minute you hit 40, the medical profession goes berserko because I don't know, studies have shown, like a bunch of people did a bunch of studies on women 40 and older. And so now the medical profession thinks that when you turn 40, like some light switch gets flicked and all of a sudden you're sick and at risk for a million things. Me, I'm very healthy. I eat healthy. I exercise. I'm fit, whatever. And the pregnancy was a great pregnancy. I didn't have any problems with it. But when I would tell people like, oh no, like I want, I'm fine. I don't need to do a cesarean, or like, they would be like, the doctors would be like, oh no, like you're at risk. You're at risk. You know what? Like, who are you? Like, who are you? Who says that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so the first thing is, whenever you want to do something challenging or push the norm a little bit, just understand that people are going to come back at you. Like, and that's how you know, like, oh, I'm doing something I should be doing, when everyone is telling you you shouldn't be doing it, right? Now, I don't mean like everyone go out and like do crazy stuff that is bad for you. I'm talking about when you do things that kind of will challenge the conventional thinking. People they get very scared. Okay, so just be ready for that, right? But then you have to mentally prepare. So for example, I would watch on YouTube, like there are a million videos of like women giving birth with no epidural. If you do a search, it'd be like, unmedicated labor and delivery. You just search on those terms, you'll see these women, right? I must have watched 100 of them, but it was like I was watching them as if I was in the video. And at times I would even visualize myself, like I would see myself as if someone was YouTubing, as if I was YouTubing. Like I would imagine or envision myself as if someone was videotaping me giving birth, because I would imitate or mimic some of the things that they did. And what did they do? One woman told me in her video, she said in her video that when she had an unmedicated delivery, she would relax her jaw just like this. Like let her jaw hang down. And she said that that was really instrumental in telling her body that it's okay and that it could relax. And it's true, because when you think about it, when you get really nervous, your body gets tight. And a lot of people take it right here in their chest. But actually what you do is a lot of times people go like this. Have you ever seen people like when they're really tense about something, they'll go like that? Or sometimes you see these people in labor and they're like that, like wrong, the way to do it. And I just would practice that. And even to this day, when I get nervous about something, I would always like envision myself. I was like, okay, the labor is going to come. The pain is going to come. And when the pain comes, I'm just going to go like this. Like I'm going to open my mouth. I'm going to relax. And so then when the labor pains did come, I knew to do that, right? And it was like my body knew it. It was like I had put my body through a labor almost like in my mind, all right? And it was just like when I was in high school and I would do those track races, those track runs, and it was like by the time I got to the state divisional championship, I had already run the race. Like I already run the race in my mind a million times. And that's really important, right? Because then when the pains would come, when I would be running and the pains would come in my arms, on my throat, on my lungs, I would know like I'm not going to die from this. And it was the same with my labor. Like when the labor pains would come, another thing is I would go like this, like I would open my hands, like, because doctors don't want you to necessarily know this, because if women start to like feel like they can be in control of labor and delivery, then what are the doctors going to do? Like it takes control away from the doctor a lot when you say you want to have a natural birth. And that's why the doctors are really against it. But anyways, I would go, I didn't have to be like strapped to the bed because I didn't have the IV hooked up. Like I had the IV hook in, but then they weren't hooking me up to the machine because there was nothing wrong with me, right? So they didn't need to be like pushing drugs into me or pushing IV into me, right? So I had my hands actually open, like my palms open like this, like almost like even hyperextended back. And when the labor pains would come, I would go like this and I would say to myself mentally, I accept this energy. I know this sounds like so crazy, right? It sounds like so airy fairy, like what am I, a yoga teacher, right? But I will just tell you that because I had this relaxed attitude of like, I am accepting this pain. I understand. I would say, I understand this pain. I even said, I was like, awesome, great. And the reason I was excited about the pains is I did understand the pain. Now I understood the pain. And it was that when you have these pains with every contraction, the contractions are getting worse. Instead of being like, oh my God, the contractions are getting worse. I was like, wow, like this is great. I accept this. I love feeling like this because this means that my body is getting closer and closer to delivery and that this is going to be all over. So it was like unbelievable. It was amazing because I remember in all of my other deliveries, the pain being so much worse. And I mean, I know that it wasn't really worse, right? Like from one labor to the next, like it's the same pain, right? Like you're going to push a baby out. There's nothing that's going to save you, right? You're going to just be in pain. But I knew that I knew what it was and I understood it and I accepted it. And I actually was welcoming the pain. And that made my whole body more relaxed and that made it actually better. So what I'm saying to you is that, when you prepare mentally, I don't like how a lot of motivational experts try to teach you how to do this. Like, like envision your best life, like your life of your dreams. You know what? Whatever. Like, obviously, yeah. I mean, me like riding in the desert in a camel with like, like in some exotic location. Okay, fine. Like, yeah, that's a dream life, but is that really that realistic? What I'm saying is, think about the things in life that you want to do, and then don't be scared or shy away from it. Don't let yourself be intimidated or be put off by what other people say, or even things that you say about how it's going to be too hard and you can't do it. You can do it. You just have to be smart about getting ready for it and commit and do the work to get ready for it. And that was something that I guess I never really got. Like I said, I think every labor and delivery teaches me something. And that is something that I guess I learned from this, was that with the proper preparation, it's unbelievable how you can transcend, because I feel like I transcended from that third labor I feel like between the third child and the fourth child, like I definitely transcended into like another state of being of mental mentality, like another state of being, another state of consciousness is the word that I'm looking for. I feel like it brought me back to what I used to do when I was a kid before I even understood I was doing it, that now as an adult I recognize. And it is the process of building strength. And so when you are preparing, what you've got to do is you've got to put yourself through an even higher challenge than what it is that you'll be facing on game day. Because then when you are in the real thing, it's like you've already been there. Like, I feel like I lived through this labor and delivery 100 times before. It was even at the point where I was so into this that I was into it. Like, I was mentally into it. And I felt like I put my body through this mental exercise before I actually even got into labor. Like, when I would be doing something, I would trail off sometimes and I would imagine about the labor. Like, I would imagine myself being in labor, and I would imagine someone videotaping me and seeing the looks on my face and all of these things that I was doing. Or I would imagine like the pain coming and like the expressions I was going to make and the breathing. And sometimes I would just stop what I was doing and I would breathe like I was going to breathe that day. So you see what I'm saying? I know all this stuff sounds nuts, but I can tell you that I'm someone sitting here who has passed the CFA exam level 2, become a CFA charter holder. If you understand about my background, you know that was no small accomplishment. And then also, I'm a successful entrepreneur, like have overcome incredible challenges again and again with my business. Although I feel like with my business, I haven't really even gotten to the potential I can reach. And I actually, I think, have achieved my potential in terms of having these children, like coming to it with my first delivery being a cesarean that was beyond my control. I don't know, maybe if I had pushed back a little bit or been a little bit more aware or educated about birth options, then I would have pushed back a little bit. But I didn't have any children at that point. I was just so glad to have a child that I agreed to it. Looking back, like, there actually were risks in that pregnancy. So I'm glad that I went for that option because I had a healthy child. But anyways, I feel as if, I went to the limit of my existence in labor. Like I felt like I went to the limit of my strength. I felt at times in high school, I went to the limit of my physical strength as a runner. And that's just something that I just would tell you is, if you want to go to the limit, if you want to go to your success, if you want to reach your potential, understand that it's not just going to be a matter of all tactics. There is going to be a certain amount of mental preparation and mental toughness that you are going to need to have in order to be able to do this. And it's not going to just be an idea. The idea. It's going to be not going to just be an idea or a concept. It's going to be something, an exercise that you're mentally going to have to put yourself through. Just like going through an exercise that you physically do. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope that you'll subscribe and let me know any comments on this video.